As a community, we build empathy, curiosity, joy, and connection when we share stories with you. Welcome to Storytellers Project, part of the USA Today network.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Entrepreneurship and Hustle Storytellers. I am genuinely so excited to welcome you to this show. It's always one of my favorites because it involves so much hustle to make storytelling happen and to make our dreams happen. And that's really what a huge part of this show is about. So we're going to get right into it. My name is Megan Finnerty. I'm the founder and director of the Storytellers Project at USA Today. And I am really excited, like I said, because we know that you are sharing a little bit of your evening with us, and we really appreciate that. Because tonight we're going to help you get closer to and learn more about 5 entrepreneurs from across America. We're joining Humana and these interesting people to talk about not just how they made it through the pandemic, but how they made it through all kinds of things in their lives. And I know probably you've never thought so much about small business owners or the people in your community who make it special as you have during the last year. So we really hope this show connects with you. Since 2016, the Storytellers Project has brought more than 100 shows each year to communities across the country. But we're still online for right now because, it still seems a little bit shaky to be in big theaters with a bunch of strangers. But it does feel necessary to be together. So we're still bringing you these shows online. And we, like I said, have handpicked incredible, inspiring, authentic, and entertaining real people to tell stories about entrepreneurship and hustle. And so I'm going to bring them up right this minute. I want to first introduce Kitty HAILEY. She is legit a professional investigator, a speaker, and an investigative ethicist. Kitty, we are excited to have you.
Thank you.
Awesome. We are bringing up Gabriella Navarro-Busch. She's an attorney. She's an entrepreneur. She stands up for justice and helps people. I'm very excited for you guys to hear Gabriella's story. It is really, oh my gosh, it is it's an American story. I don't want to hype it too much, then it gets weird, and I shouldn't do that. Okay, SHELETTA Brundidge is here. She is the founder of SHELETTAMakesMeLaugh.com. She runs an online podcasting platform. She's an Emmy award-winning comedian and a radio host, television anchor, columnist. SHELETTA is a multi-hyphenate communicator, and we're lucky to have her. SKYLER REEVES is here. He is the founder of Vividly Hospitality Group. And if you know SKYLER, maybe you've seen him. He's been making the rounds lately because he is, he runs a bunch of restaurants, and you're going to hear about actually why you might have seen him recently on an upcoming TV show, news broadcast, something like that. SKYLER's trying to make it happen for people who he employs and works with. And lastly, we have Joseph King Cohn. He is a carpenter, a Pokemon card seller. I hope I'm not giving away too much. And an all-around entrepreneur. We're excited to have you. Thank you guys all for being with us today. Bye. So Storytellers is not a TED Talk. It's not Toastmasters. It's not how-to. It's not an educational lecture. The only thing we are legit going to try to sell you at different points this evening is probably a subscription, maybe some brownies. But our storytellers tonight, they're not here to pitch. They're really here to relate to you, because storytelling is about visiting. You open your heart and your mind and you pay attention to the person or people you care about and who you want to feel closer to. And we genuinely invite you to do that here tonight. I hope you're inspired maybe to interact with some of our storytellers later in other parts of your lives. I'm not totally sure why you might need to hire a PI, but you literally never know. Kitty will probably make that apparent in her story. Some of our storytellers are going to be polished and professional. Some are going to be casual and conversational. We ask you to receive all of them in the spirit in which they're intended, because that's how community connection really happens. We believe creating empathy and understanding is necessary at all times, but particularly during times of uncertainty like the ones we're in. I'm excited to bring up our first storyteller. SHELETTA is here to share a story about a big change in her life. SHELETTA, are you ready?
Yes.
Take it away.
This story is all about hustling. You see, hustling is in my DNA. My mama was a hustler. My aunties were hustler. These were women who worked 1, 2, sometimes 3 jobs to lift themselves and their families out of poverty. I remember the moment I realized it. It was 1980. I was a latchkey kid in about 3rd grade. Our family lived in a cramped 2-bedroom subsidized apartment in Houston. I got home from school, let myself in the house, and started doing my homework. It wasn't no snacks back then, y'all. You just had to be hungry until dinner time. That way, when it was time to eat, you ate all your food. Wasn't no leftovers. We ain't had no cookies and goldfish and frozen fruit pops like my kids have now. It was breakfast, lunch, and dinner, period. So anyway, I'm sitting at the kitchen table trying to figure out how to use those greater than, less than, or equal to signs, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mama get off the bus in her nurse's uniform. It was about 3 o'clock. She walked right in the house to start dinner. And wasn't no microwave or pre-wrapped oven meals. This woman was smothering chicken, baking cornbread, and cutting up potatoes to mash them. And somehow at the same time, she was correcting my math problems, ironing my clothes, and combing my hair for school the next day because I had to have those bangs like Tootie on Facts of Life. And just in case y'all were wondering, I did have hair back then. She did all this before 5 because at 6 o'clock, she had to get back on the bus and go downtown so she could spend the evening at her second job, cleaning up dozens of offices in those skyscraper buildings that Houston is known for. It wasn't until the moment I walked across the stage at University of Houston in May of 2000, the first person in my family to graduate from college, that I realized her hustling paid for the journalism degree I was holding in my hands. When I started my career in broadcasting, I didn't go looking for a mentor. I just mirrored my mama's and my auntie's hustle and threw a little bit of that education I had on top of it to create my own success. Now, my boyfriend at the time had just finished a medical fellowship in Houston where I thought we'd make a life together, when he suddenly, out of nowhere, took a job at a hospital in Minnesota. I think he left Texas thinking he was going to get rid of me. Not. See, that brother made the mistake of moving across the street from a TV station in Minneapolis. So during one of my many visits to see him while Sean was at work, I got dressed, walked over to KSTP TV, and asked to see the news director. Now, there was no appointment, no calling to set anything up, no introductory email. I remember Chris Berg came to the lobby and I told him point blank, the only thing you're missing up in here is me. Now, as you can imagine, he couldn't quite figure out what to do next. He knew I wasn't leaving, and being Minnesota nice, he just invited me to the morning editorial meeting. Honey, I took over. I was in there pitching story ideas, writing for producers, working with reporters. They wanted me to stick around permanently. Well, when Sean got home from work, he walked into his apartment and I was gone. The door was unlocked. Child, he thought somebody had kidnapped me. He was about to call 911 and report me missing until he turned it on Channel 5 and saw me in the background of a live shot running scripts to the studio. Let's just say that break he thought he was getting by leaving me in Texas didn't quite work out like he planned. Breaking news, Sean and I got married a few months later. I was hustling hard at KSTP TV and folks took notice. I won an Emmy and 2 Associated Press Edward R. Murrow Awards. I went from working behind the scenes to anchoring my own TV show. And then I found out that a radio station I loved and had been listening to was actually in the same building and owned by the same company. I thought I had won the Showcase Showdown on The Price is Right. I was hustling and harassing everybody at My Talk 107.1 until Kevin Berger, my good friend, found me a time slot. Just like my mama, I was working 2 full-time jobs and living my best life. My first son, Andrew, was born in 2009, and that kid was a little brainiac. I mean, he was so smart that he potty trained himself before he was 1 year old because he didn't like the idea of being wet. I was still firing on all cylinders. My hustle didn't slow down at all with just one kid. In addition to my TV and radio duties, I picked up a weekly features column in the newspaper. I thought, child, this being a working mama thing is a piece of cake. What are all these women complaining about? So at this point in my life, I'm about 40 plus years old. I figured we got to hurry up and have 3 or 4 more kids so we can have that house full of children we've always dreamed of. In 2012, my son Brandon was born. But something was different about him. When I talked to him, he couldn't look at me. He didn't play with his toys quite right. And before I could figure out what was wrong with Brandon, I was pregnant with my daughter Cameron, who did not meet any of her developmental milestones. Before Cameron could crawl, I gave birth to my youngest son, Daniel, who flapped his hands constantly and couldn't walk until he was almost 2 years old. Y'all, I remember the moment doctors told me that I had not 1, not 2, but 3 children with autism. When I left that appointment, I got in the car. Now, this was back when you could use your cell phone while you were driving. Remember that? I called all my jobs and quit. The hustle had come to a screeching halt. I got in the house, secured my little ones in the playpen, turned it on Big Bird, and let everybody on Sesame Street babysit them, okay? I put an iPad in my oldest son's hand, gave him some goldfish to keep him occupied, and made sure he had something to eat. And then I grabbed every bottle of liquor I had in my cabinet. I crawled under my dining room table and lay there for 3 days, inconsolable. Now, my plan was to drink myself to death, but apparently my insane college partying days with my friends Angela and Nicole had me numb to consuming large amounts of alcohol. It's a scientific fact. I'm here to prove it. So I figured I would stop eating, starve myself to death. I lost my will to live. And 3 months later, I lost 100 pounds too. With this short haircut I got, folks thought I was a man. On a side note, don't let those Kardashians fool you, because when you lose a large amount of weight in a short amount of time, the first thing to go is your boobs. I remember shopping at Target with a red shirt on one day. Somebody thought I was a sales clerk. They were like, "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me where I can find the Band-Aids?" I didn't have the heart to tell them that I wasn't a man and I didn't work there. So I went ahead and took them to the Band-Aid aisle since I knew where they were. And since, they thought I worked there, I went ahead and stayed for an afternoon team meeting. But seriously, I remember praying one day, asking God why he was punishing me with 3 special needs kids. I mean, I did everything right in my mind. I graduated from college. I had a productive career. I was married. All my babies had the same baby daddy. At least that's what it says on the birth certificate. But in the middle of my prayer, God stopped me and said, "This is not a punishment. I've given you a position, and that position is mother. Now get up, girl. Help your kids, and then go and help somebody else." At that moment, I got up off my knees and I got a new purpose in life. The hustle was back, baby. Only this time, I was hustling for my kids. I was hustling to get them into the right programs at school, hustling to find the best therapists. It wasn't long before they got better. After 2 years, Brandon and Cameron tested off of the autism spectrum. And Daniel, my youngest son, who didn't talk until he was 4, is now reading on a 4th grade level. And he's only 6 years old. Now, it wasn't long before word got around about the progress that my kids were making. And other parents started contacting me because they wanted to know what I had in the secret sauce. They saw my kids' success and wanted the same for their own. At first, it was like 1 or 2 calls from moms on a mission. Then a couple dozen messages a day started pouring in. I answered each and every one of them, giving every parent as much time as they needed, because I wanted to let them know that they could lean on me for support. And I always assured them that things can and will get better. I remember the moment that I knew that the misery that I felt at the time, having 3 special needs kids with autism, turned into a ministry for me. I answered 200 emails in a week, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to hold a free workshop to share with other parents what I've learned about autism. And my mom and my aunts and I, we went looking, and we picked out a venue that held about 400 people. But that Saturday morning, when we opened the doors, more than 800 parents and teachers and grandparents and caregivers showed up who wanted to hear what I had to say. Now, the fire department showed up too, because they had to turn people away. We had exceeded the building's capacity. Since then, I've put on dozens of autism seminars and training sessions for parents and educators, all of them, every last one of them, free of charge. I became known soon as Minnesota's autism mom. I've partnered with the NFL to create autism sensory friendly rooms and work with the Department of Health to promote early testing and intervention. When my daughter said she couldn't find a book about a little Black girl with autism in her school's library, I wrote one. And Cameron Goes to School quickly became a bestseller. Now, when my kids got better, I figured I better get back to work because the bigger they got, the bigger the grocery bill was. But for some reason, I had a hard time landing a job. I was pounding the pavement looking for work, but nobody would hire me. The bills were due, my bank account was busted, and I found myself following Brinks trucks around, hoping somebody would drop a bag of cash out of the back door. Then one night, after I put my kids to bed, I turned on the television and stumbled on the 2019 BET Awards. I remember it like it was yesterday. In an acceptance speech, Tyler Perry said something so profound that it liberated me. Instead of fighting for a seat at the table, build your own. It was in that moment I saw that my way forward was to become my own boss. I founded SHELETTA a podcasting platform for Black folks, a place to share our stories and talk about our concerns with listeners hungry to hear voices like their own. I connected with Black subject experts who had been shut out of traditional mainstream media and gave them a spotlight to share their knowledge as hosts. We launched 8 different podcasts with themes ranging from travel to mental health to autism awareness to corporate diversity. We fashioned ourselves as a one-stop shop for cultural relevance and creativity. Now listen, we cut some corners during COVID, but we persevered through this pandemic. And my business is still alive and thriving. We have 9 employees, including my children, Brandon and Cameron. Yes, honey, they work for me. The same ones who couldn't talk just a few years back are now hosting a hilariously funny podcast called Simply Autistic Siblings, a show for kids with autism. This is the moment that I realized hustling is hereditary.
Sheletta, thank you so much for your story. Oh my gosh, your sense of humor, your inspiration, your thoughtfulness, your reckless encouragement of all good things. It is just such a joy to listen to you tell your story.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. We feel so thankful for your story and your time today. And say hi to your peanuts. Like, when are we booking them, I guess? I had no idea. It's cool. Sheletta's already got her signs. They're pitching us. They're taking notes about this show. I know. Thank you. Well, we so appreciate her story. And that's one of the amazing things about the Storytellers Project, because when we talk about hustle, we talk about entrepreneurship, it can look like anything. I mean, what like a miracle is Sheletta's entrepreneurship and the podcasting and sort of like, oh gosh, like startup media space, and now she's creating a platform for so many other people, and that is something we appreciate here at Storytellers Project. You know what else we also appreciate, though, so sincerely, is our national presenting sponsor, Humana. They have been with our show since 2019, and they stuck with us during the pandemic, and we are genuinely grateful. They sponsored our shows nationally in the Outside Times, and they are sticking with us virtually because they believe sharing stories and connecting as humans is really what leads to real health, healthy as people, healthy as communities. And we need these connections that we build through stories and engagement to each other and to our communities. We need these connections because that keeps us, well, it keeps us more healthy. It keeps us from alienation. It keeps us from loneliness. And we know we need these things, especially as we come out of the pandemic. Humana wants you to know, as COVID-19 vaccinations become available, hopefully everywhere you guys are watching, they strongly encourage you to consider getting vaccinated and to discussing it with your doctor. If you want to learn more about what Humana is doing to decrease loneliness, increase health, and ensure people are connected to each other and their communities and to health, you can visit humana.com to find out more. We really appreciate their support of all of these stories. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to bring up our next storyteller. Kitty is here. Kitty HAILEY is here to talk to us about her life as a private investigator. Kitty, the floor is yours.
When you work for yourself, you're always working, because if you're not working, you're not billing. And if you're not billing, you're not making money. So you work a lot. You're never guaranteed in my business that there's going to be a job after the one that you have. So you could work an 80-hour week or maybe an 8-hour week. And that's why it was very important for me to keep my cell phone with me. You see, I do criminal defense work. So I work civil rights cases, and I work for those who are wrongfully convicted. And these telephone calls I receive could be a matter of life and death. Well, there I was sitting in line at a funeral, in a funeral procession. We had been to the graveside. We were now going to the family home to sit Shiva. Shiva is the after funeral repast. And my phone rang. So of course I picked it up, and the woman on the other end said, "Hey, Miss Kitty, this is Doreen. You want to talk to me? You can talk to me now, because that's it. Now or never." And I was thinking, oh my God, Doreen could make the difference in a case. She hadn't wanted to come forward, and I had worked with her until she really got to the point where she was now willing to give me a statement. So I thought quickly, and I said, okay, Doreen, I'm in Pennsauken, New Jersey. I can be over the bridge to Philadelphia and in North Philly in 20 minutes. And she said, great, well, you better get here, Miss Kitty. So I called my girlfriend 2 cars up, and I said, look, I got to go to work. I'm sorry. I have to leave. Make my apologies. I'll try to get to the house later. And I discreetly pulled out of line. And I started thinking about the case, and I went from east to west over the Ben Franklin Bridge so that I would go to North Philadelphia to interview Doreen. And as I got to the base of the bridge, and I looked behind me as I was making my turn. Oh no, there was a line of traffic behind me. The entire procession had followed me. All the out-of-town guests who didn't have a clue where Cherry Hill, New Jersey was, they were on my tail. They had followed me all the way across the bridge. Now, I don't want to look totally stupid, and I don't want to get these people killed. You see, Doreen lived in something called the Badlands. The Badlands in Philadelphia is a place where, if you're lucky, you don't get shot. And I didn't think it was a good idea to end the day having all of these nice older people getting shot. So I called Doreen quickly and I said, I'm going to slow down when I get to 5th and Dolphin. You hop in the car and we'll get the hell out of the neighborhood, because I don't think you want to be seen with me. So, okay. So I slow down. She hops in the car and she's upset. Man, Miss Kitty, let's do this. It's now or never. Let's do this. And I'm going, well, wait, calm down. Just calm down. We're going to go for a little ride. We're going to get to know each other. She had no idea that I was glued to the rearview mirror, looking at the line of traffic behind me to make sure that everybody was keeping up. So I made my turn. I went down 5th Street, back under the bridge. It takes you, if you're familiar with Philly, past the Constitution Center and Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell in that area. And then we got back on the bridge, this time going west to east, like a duck with my little ducklings behind me, keeping my eyes glued to the rearview mirror because I had to be careful. I didn't want to lose anybody. And Doreen is having a fit. So I'm saying anything to her. Hey, let's get to know each other. Do you have any children? Are your parents alive? What do you like to do for fun? I couldn't talk to her about the case because I couldn't think about the case. How can you think about anything when you're responsible for all these people and you've just really screwed up? So finally, we get to Cherry Hill, which thank God is not too far into New Jersey. And as I pull into her street, we slow down and the cars behind me start to peel off and park. And now I can speed up and I can go again back over the bridge in the other direction. This time I can start to think about the case because now I just have Doreen. And slowly we start to talk and we get to a Dunkin' Donuts. And we go into Dunkin' Donuts. I buy us each a cup of coffee and I sit there and I talk to her and I get the most amazing statement. It is going to be so helpful to my client. I'm thrilled. I've got a good statement. And as I'm taking her back to her house, Doreen says to me, "Wow, Miss Kitty, we had such a good long day. I'm so glad we did that. You're like a girlfriend. Could I call you again? Maybe we could get together and have coffee." And I'm thinking, oh no, all I want to do is get her home and not have to go back and forth over that bridge one more time today. I knew I couldn't make it to the Shiva call. I was happy that I had a good statement, but oh my God, I owed so much to my girlfriend who had lost her grandmother. So the next day, I waited for an appropriate time and I went back to Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And I knocked on the door and met Donna. I gave her a big hug. I felt so bad. And as I was apologizing to her for running out on her literally, she said, "Oh, Kitty, don't worry about it. You don't know. Some really nice person took all the out-of-town relatives on a tour of historic Philadelphia. It was great." I didn't have the nerve to tell her that nice person was me, so I didn't say a thing. You know, sometimes there's collateral damage when you're doing an investigation. It wasn't too bad this time. It was a good day all around.
Kitty, thank you so much for your story and your sense of humor, if not your sense of direction. Thank you so much for joining us today. We felt really excited to have a professional investigator join our show. And while Kitty's story today was pretty light, we also want you guys to know, like, she investigates like very serious stuff, right? She mentioned she looks into civil rights cases, social justice work. Her job is like very serious, but today she focused on maybe the lighter side of things. So we are appreciative of you, Kitty, for joining us today. Our next storyteller is coming to us from Prescott, Arizona. SKYLER REEVES is here to talk to us about hustling during the pandemic. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Take it away.
Okay, so I started my career in the restaurant business as a 16-year-old busboy. I grew up in Michigan. I got a job as a busboy in a restaurant, and I didn't know it at the time, but that was very formative. I mean, I loved that job. I knew I liked it at the time, but now as an adult, looking back as a teenager, I really loved that job. I loved how I was treated like an adult. I loved working at night. I loved the hustle. I loved always being busy and running around. And of course, I loved the money. You know, they had these little envelopes. Where your tips would get wrapped up. You'd pick them up at the end of the day or end of the week. And as a 16-year-old, you know, it adds up pretty quick living at home. So, you know, as I went through my life, I kind of always had a restaurant job. I was a athlete for a while, as a cyclist. I went to college, but I always had a restaurant gig. And I eventually moved to LA and really kind of cut my teeth in the hospitality, restaurant, nightlife business. in Los Angeles. I worked for great people there. And, you know, I for a long time, I thought of the restaurant thing as a side hustle, or as it was like kind of my nighttime job. But as I got older, I realized, shoot, I'm not doing anything else. I guess this is my career, you know? So, and I still loved it. I still loved it, and I still love it to this day. But I really kind of doubled down and focused more on my career and grew and just started learning as much as I possibly could about the restaurant business. Fast forward to about 6-7 years ago, and I ended up moving to Prescott, Arizona. Mountain town, northern Arizona. Moved here for a lot of different reasons, but it ended up providing a lot of opportunities to me. So I'd always wanted my own place. I knew that's what was the eventual end game for me. I wanted my own restaurant, my own bar. And 6 years ago, in 2015, I opened my first restaurant called the Barley Hound. So the Barley Hound was new and new vibe for Prescott, Arizona, and it right away just took off. I was the happiest person in the world. I mean, I loved being there. I was there from the first thing in the morning till last at night. I was there every second that I could. I absolutely loved it. It was a total dream come true. And then sure enough, I was just focusing on that business, reinvesting everything, all my money into it, you know, taking as little as possible out of it. And that was what I learned, is to hustle, to keep working hard. And so I did that. And sure enough, it afforded me another opportunity to purchase a restaurant that I loved called Rosa's Pizzeria. And then that started going really well. I purchased another restaurant, started construction on another restaurant. So I bought another great restaurant that I really loved. And then I started construction on a new restaurant that was my biggest project to date. And I felt like I was a chess player sitting in front of a chessboard, and all of the years and years and years of work had brought me to this moment. And I had the next 5, 6, 7 moves planned out against my competitors, against the marketplace. I had everything planned. I had the money planned out. I had the everything planned. And then March of 2020 comes along, right? So COVID hits. I'll never forget the day, because it was March 15th of 2020. It's my daughter's birthday. We were supposed to be at a concert. She was turning 8 years old. And the concert was one of the first things that got canceled. I think it got canceled 2 days before. And I kind of got the sense like, oh man, this is happening. And so I remember that day is when people started calling me, and, you know, it became apparent that we were going to have to close down.
Sorry, little technical difficulty there.
Are we good? Okay, we're good. Sorry guys, I don't know what happened there. So closing down was not part of the plan. You know, I felt like that chessboard that I had, sorry guys. Yeah. So I hear that we're supposed to have to close down on that mid-March of 2020.
Sorry, guys. How about now? Are we good now? Okay. Sorry. See? Entrepreneurship and hustle, right? Just no matter what the obstacles are, you just keep pushing through, right? Bluetooth headsets, first world problems. You know, my AirPods stopped working. So anyway, so someone comes along, boom, knocks that chessboard up, right? I had planned on every move from there on out, and you know, but there was no plan for zero revenue, right? I could adjust for weather, I could adjust for different employees leaving, I could adjust for almost anything, but closing or closing off revenue is no plan. There was no plan for that, right? You know, I have loans, I have leases, I had 70, 80 employees at the time who all depended on me to sign their paychecks. And so, I mean, this was like absolutely devastating. I definitely cried myself to sleep for a few times there, or didn't sleep at all. I mean, it was like, to sit there and just feel like the weight of the world is coming down upon you. And in the beginning, there was no talk of PPP. There was no talk of, rent forgiveness or any of this other stuff. So it was, to say it was stressful is an understatement. And then I realized as a week, 2 weeks go by, and I realized this is going to go on for a while. I realized that this is going to be the single biggest moment of opportunity in my career. I'm still energetic. I'm young enough to where I want to work. I still love this business every day. I knew this was going to be very, very hard for a lot of people. And I knew if I could just stick it out, that there's going to be, a pot of gold at the end of this COVID situation. So then that's March, April, then COVID really kicks in, right? There's where we had to close down and to go only, and had to lay a bunch of people off, but then bring some of them back on, and we're going to open back up, but then they changed it. I mean, we all went through that. I mean, I could go through all of those details, but I think everyone in the country, and now, the world really went through those indoor dining, outdoor dining, all these different recommendations. So by about halfway through the summer 2020, things had kind of stabilized, and everyone was talking about outdoor dining. Rosa's Pizzeria, which is our biggest and busiest restaurant, it had a tiny little patio, but not much. And we were restricted to 50%, I think just less than 50% of occupancy, which just doesn't pay the bills. It's like having a car with 2 tires. It doesn't work. It doesn't. You can maybe get it to go along for a while, but eventually it's not going to work, And so I remember a partner of mine, Steven, he sent me a picture of a restaurant that we had gone to in the past, and it was just a picnic table and a tree in a pot next to the picnic table. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. Rosa sits right on Gurley Street in Prescott, Arizona. There's diagonal parking right in front of it. And I was like, we're going to build a big patio, and this is going to be the savior. I think that was on a Sunday. On a Monday, I got on the phone with the city, fire department, police department, public works, state liquor board, got everything done within a week, had everything ready to go. By that Sunday, we had a truckload of wood dropped off, and me, my general manager, Danny, several other servers, and Rob, Kyle, people came in to help out. We are not professional builders, but it was just a testament to everyone doing whatever it took to get it done, right? It was just, if we could get through these obstacles, we knew that it was going to pay off. So we're there drilling and putting the deck together. Again, I always joke that we had 3 drills and 4 batteries, and the batteries just kept overheating and weren't working. But we got that thing built, and everyone was excited about it. So I thought. So I'm like, great, this is it. I feel like this is kind of the last big obstacle, that COVID's going to throw at us, And then people started complaining about this deck that we built. Other business owners, some of the residents didn't like the way it looked, or were complaining about losing 2 or 3 parking spaces. Now, I try to be respectful of other people's opinions and other people's point of view, but at the time, I'm just thinking, I'm on the verge of losing everything I've worked for. I don't know how long this COVID's going to go for, and this outdoor dining seems to be, this is the ticket. I've got the loan payments, leases, rents due, employee paychecks, and these guys are complaining about parking spots. It's like, I was just floored. But again, I think once that complaining started, one of those nights, Danny, one of my main guys who really helped me get through all of this, he sent me the song "I Won't Back Down" by Tom Petty, and it just kind of reminded me what I thought in the beginning. I was like, man, if this is a big moment of opportunity, we just got to keep going through it. I felt like I was like a prize fighter, and and I was told, if you can just make it 12 rounds with Mike Tyson, you'll win the fight. You're going to get hit in the face a million times and you might almost die, but if you make it to the end, you're going to be declared the victor. And so these complaints about the little deck that we built was one more bump in the road that we figured out how to get past. We figured out how to talk to them. We figured out how to make the permit last a little bit longer to get through it. And, you know, I just, you know, that's kind of when I thought, like, man, nothing shocks me anymore. And go ahead, bring me another obstacle, bring me something else to overcome. And me and my team will figure it out. I remember it was around that point where my mom, I was telling her about this whole story, and she just said, boy, Skyler, you know, if you can get through this, you know, nothing is going to stop you. And I think she was right.
Tyler for psychology. Thank you so much. Pushing through a tiny voice like a live thing. You standing in First of America's honors in our storytelling today. I appreciate you. Thank you. And Beck, one of the things that we so appreciate Skyler's story making real for us is how he emphasized after pivot, there's no playbook afloat. And that
pressure of so many people relying on him for the answers, for the next steps, and for the thing we're supposed to do. I so appreciate his story making all that really clear. It's stressful just listening to a little bit, but fortunately he's very compelling and helps us hear this story for what it is. Our next storyteller, we are genuinely excited to have her with us. Her story is truly like an American story. Gabriella, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, take away.
Hi. So I'm at my high school graduation, about ready to walk the stage to receive my diploma. I look into the audience, and sitting in the audience is my 18-month-old daughter, Delia, and I'm 3 months pregnant with my second daughter, Monica.
My family and I came to the United States from Mexico when I was 3 years old. We settled in Oxnard in Southern California. I was the only girl. I grew up with 4 brothers, traditional Mexican family, which meant that my mother and I had to share the women's work. We had to do all the women's work, and my brothers got to share all the outside chores. It was really unfair, and it was very exhausting. When I was 15, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was pregnant with my first daughter Delia. I was told that I had to get married, and I did. When it was time to register for the new school year, in my mind, I felt that the most logical step was to register for school. I wanted so much to graduate from high school. I wanted to go to college. I knew that I wanted something for myself. And the fact that I was married and pregnant with my first daughter, I didn't see that as an obstacle. I just knew that when I received my packet to register for school, that was the next step that I needed to take. So I did. I showed up at the beginning of my junior year to register for school. I went into the gym. I was ready to register. I was also 8 months pregnant. I was big, and I tried to shuffle through the paperwork, figure out what was going to be my first class, and it was really scary to see the stares of everybody looking at me and see my classmates, my teachers, everybody staring at me. So needless to say, everybody knew how I spent my summer vacation. So one of the counselors saw me, and she came up to me. We had a short conversation, and she said, we both decided that it would probably be a good idea for me to take the semester off. So I did. I took the semester off, determined that I was going to come back at the beginning of the next semester. My daughter Delia was born. She was born in October, and in January, I was there ready to start the next semester. When I went to start my classes, one of the administrators at the school suggested that I probably should go to a continuation high school. Those at that time, the continuation high school was meant for kids that were at risk or kids that had behavioral problems or had some issues. I didn't have any issues. I was an A student. I was determined to graduate with my class. I didn't want them to push me out. I wasn't going to be a dropout, and I wasn't going to be a statistic. I shared a lot of these struggles that I had with one of my teachers, Miss Gloria Barrios. And Miss Barrios was studying for the LSAT. She was going to be going to law school that year. And I would share the things that I was struggling, and she constantly encouraged me to just stay forward, stay focused, keep working really hard, just hustle and make sure that I did my work and achieve the goal of graduating from high school. She also mentioned that I should consider going to law school. She said, I've never seen anybody that fought so much to remain in school, and how you advocated for yourself. And so from that moment on, the seed was planted. So then, so that moment on, the seed was planted, and a year and a half later, I'm standing on the stage, graduated from high school. I graduated with honors and proud to graduate with my class, the Channel Islands High School class of 1978. So then, once I graduated from high school, shortly after that, while I was in high school, I was able to enroll in this program that the city of Oxnard and Oxnard College had encouraged high school kids to introduce them to college and also introduce them to the city workforce. And part of the city workforce included the Oxnard Police Department. So I enrolled. I was constantly hustling, trying to figure out ways that I could get involved in programs that would keep me in school, keep me focused on my goal to eventually go to college. So I enrolled in this program. I was accepted. I went to college in the morning. I went to Oxnard College in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I would work in one of the city offices that included the Oxnard Police Department. When the program ended, I continued to work at the police department. Jobs, different student type jobs. I continued going to Oxnard College. And then at the age of 19, I realized that my marriage at the age of 15 was going nowhere. By this time, I had 2 daughters, and I needed to make a decision to get out of this bad marriage. And so I did. At 19, I became a single mom, responsible for the lives of my 2 daughters, their lives and their futures, and my future. I was lucky to have a full-time job at the police department, but it didn't have benefits. So when an opening came up at in the dispatch center, I immediately applied. It was a great paying job. It was exciting. And I thought, okay, so I can put off going to law school. I can save some money and work in dispatch. I was so excited to get that job working in the dispatch center. It had benefits. It paid well. Again, it was exciting, but it was also very grueling. It was shift work, working weekends, working holidays, mandatory overtime. It was exhausting. I remember one day coming into the dispatch center, I had already worked probably a number of consecutive shifts, and I was starting a night shift, and I walked into the dispatch center, and the room is dark, and there are 2 of my coworkers sitting at the radio console. They're both women. They're both 15 to 20 years older than me, and both of them had already been working at the police department about 15 to 20 years. I walk in completely exhausted. I look at them, and I think about my dream of going to college and going to law school. And I look at them, and I start seeing my dreams start to float away. I put my headset on, I plug it into the console, and I start sobbing. At that point, I realized that I needed to make a change, or I would remain in this position and let my dreams just disappear. So that night, I spoke to one of the shift supervisors, Lieutenant Hubbard. Lieutenant Hubbard at the time was attending Ventura College of Law, a local law school. It's kind of like a night school in Ventura. And I told him about my dream of going to law school. I told him what I had gone through, and he said, "Why don't you talk to one of the administrators at the law school and just see, you know, what it takes for you to get in." So I did just that. I created a plan. I met with the administrators, created a plan. I took a writing course, a couple of writing courses at Ventura College, and started getting ready to go to law school. I got accepted into law school, and 4.5 years later, I graduated from law school. While I was going to law school and also working at the police department, I continued to be promoted within the police department, eventually reaching the top position of communications manager. That meant that I ran the entire dispatch center. I was also responsible for a remodel of the dispatch center. After the remodel was completed and I had passed the California bar exam, I knew that the next logical step was for me to graduate from law. I knew that the next logical step was for me to leave. I promised myself that I would never be a dispatcher with a law degree. So after 23 years of service working for the Oxnard Police Department, I retired. While I was also working at the police department, I did some internships. And one of those internships was interning at Channel County's Legal Services. Channel County's Legal Services was a legal aid organization in Oxnard that provided legal services for the poor. And there I met my mentor and future friend, Carmen Ramirez. Carmen always pushed me to think about working in immigration. She said, you know, this is an area of law there's really a need for it in Ventura County. Served, you're bilingual, you have this background working at the police department. I think you would be great at that. She was right. At a number of different community-based organizations that provided legal services for immigrants, and I love the work. I love the fact that I help people in their immigration matters. So after taking an extensive immigration course, I was really reluctant in opening my own office. I knew I didn't want to work for anybody, but I didn't know what steps I needed to take to actually become a lawyer. Not become a lawyer, but actually open my office. So I had a couple of friends that let me borrow an empty desk. And so I was pretty much a squatter. I was taking cases, but I didn't have an office. One of my first cases was representing an individual that was being detained at one of the immigration detention centers. It was called the Terminal Island Detention Center in San Pedro, California. I was determined to figure things out on my own because I didn't work at a law firm. I really didn't have the benefit of somebody teaching me this. So I pretty much learned it the hard way. So the first time I had to appear in court was representing this individual that was detained at Terminal Island. I didn't realize that you had to park almost a mile away before you got into the detention center. So walked into the detention center, and when I was actually inside, I was the only woman amongst a bunch of men in orange jumpsuit and shackles. I sat at the front pew at the front bench, and my client shuffled and sat next to me. I was sitting next to him, reviewing his case, and my hands were shaking. My hands were visibly shaking, and he nudged me and he said, "Hey, am I your first client?" I took a deep breath. I looked at him and I just said, "Of course not. I've handled this before." I knew I had to fake it until I could make it. So I stopped my hands from shaking. I reviewed my client's case. I represented my client and was able to get him out of custody so he can be with his family. I take these kind of cases really seriously because for a number of reasons. Number one, if you make a mistake, one of your clients could get deported, and they would be separated from their families. After I represented this client, I knew that my next step would be to hang my own shingle. So I did. I opened my own office, and after 20 years as a lawyer, almost 20 years as a lawyer, I continue to enjoy and love representing immigrants. I love the fact that I get to tell their story, why they should remain in the United States. I get to tell why the hustle and the struggles that they went through to get here and why they deserve to be here. I help them achieve their dream of living here in the United States. Looking back, I think of all the decisions I made and the direction that my life took. I missed a lot. Having my two daughters, I missed a lot in their lives. Working and going to law school, working long hours, studying long hours. I missed their birthdays. I missed many birthdays. I missed many holidays. I missed many Christmases. There were so many Christmases that I would show up on my break from working in the dispatcher, wearing a uniform for an hour and a half to be able to see my daughters open their gifts. I worried about whether they would have suffered, whether they suffered because of the decisions I made, decision to leave my first marriage, the decision to start law school, and the sacrifices, not only money, but time spent away from them. But after reflecting on who they have become, my daughters have both turned out to be very resilient and very strong women. I'm glad that I took that leap of faith and I decided to pursue my dreams so that I can pave the way for them to pursue theirs. Thank you.
It's actually not possible to get COVID-19 from any of these vaccines because they are not using live virus.
Short-term side effects that were observed in the leading COVID-19 vaccine trials included injection site pain and redness, fatigue, muscle aches and pains, joint pain, and headache.
When one develops these short-term symptoms after receiving the vaccine, that in fact is a sign that the vaccine is working and that your body is marshaling its defense network.
It's important to note that none of these vaccines can give you COVID-19 since they only express a protein from the virus that allows your body's immune system to generate antibodies.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for your story and for really, my gosh, sending a message forward to all of the people who followed you, setting such an example for your daughters. I so appreciate your story.
Thank you.
Awesome. I also want to say, Gabriella, really accurately, I think captured that moment where you are sitting at work and you're like, is this it? Is this my job? Like, right?
Yes.
Oh, that is such a turning point in so many entrepreneurship stories. So thank you for painting that picture for us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of entrepreneurship stories, our show is supported by two very cool people. They're entrepreneurs, Eileen and David. They run Fairy Tale Brownies, and they first started their business back in 1992 as literal friends from kindergarten. They started baking in a friend's catering kitchen when they were grown up, not as kindergartners. At night, they would bake in this catering kitchen, and then they would sell their brownies at street fairs on the weekend. And now, today, they're real people who own a real business in Phoenix, Arizona. It's 37,000 square feet. Big commercial bakery where they bake and package and ship more than 6 million blondies, brownies, and cookies every year. And they have been supporting the Storytellers Project's hustle since 2014 because they believe that, like, you know, teamwork, hustling, ups and downs, all of these make for great stories, and they make for this great partnership we have with them. They've been around for 29 years, and they're hoping that they can help celebrate they want to celebrate all the successes of today's entrepreneurs on today's show. They sent all of them little thank you gifts, little thank you boxes for telling your stories today. But if you want to celebrate any of your own successes, Fairy Tale Brownies wants to give you a chance to win a dozen brownies, a big box of brownies, and they are giant brownies that have almost all of your daily calories in them. They're amazing. We really appreciate their support of the project, even during through the whole pandemic. So if you want to go to brownies.com, you can enter the sweepstakes. As you can see, it's right there on the lower third. We're putting it in the comments, or you can just drop Dave and Eileen a note. They're real people, and they're really like very cool entrepreneurs, and we appreciate them supporting our show. So thanks to Fairy Tale Brownies. Our last storyteller is Joseph, and he is here talking about a family legacy, kind of like SHELETTA, of hustling and doing it yourself. Take it away, Joe.
3 rules. It's 1996, summer, and I had 3 rules that my parents are trying to instill in all of us. Rule 1, spend your money wisely. Now that's 10% donated immediately. Donate $10% of whatever you make to those in need. 10% goes directly into savings. Then you get to spend money on what you need, those necessities, food, water, shelter, those things. And after all that's done, you can spend money on the things that you want. My parents are pretty good at this. Rule 2, enjoy what you do and the money will come. So my parents, they're hardworking hustlers. Anyone who knows them knows this. When we go to school, my dad goes to work. When we get home from school, my dad will come home from work and spend time with us. And when we go to sleep, my dad, he goes to school. He starts off as a mechanic, and he's worked his way all the way up to running the transportation at ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation. Now my mom, she goes to work when we go to sleep. She goes to sleep when we go to school, and she is home to help us with anything we need when we get home. That's just weekdays though. On the weekends, my parents, they're flipping houses, they're realtors, they're wedding photographers. My parents have had enough time during all that chaos to make a beautiful garden out front that they take a lot of pride in. They like people seeing a nice yard. Rule number 3. Not my favorite rule. Never pay someone for what you can do yourself. I'm 8 years old. I don't understand this rule, and I don't like this rule. We live in Phoenix. If it's 108 outside and the car needs to be fixed, it makes sense to send it to the mechanic. But my dad started the mechanic, so we'll just do it ourselves, right? Doesn't matter about the 3rd-degree burn on our back. If trees need to be trimmed in the backyard, I think as an 8-year-old, we should just go ahead and pay someone to do that. But my parents think that we should do it ourselves. Like I said, not really my favorite rule. Now, each of my brothers, my 2 older brothers, my younger sister, and I, we all have chores around the house. And mine is garbage. After the garbage, getting our room done, cleaned up, and the dishes done, my parents have given each of us opportunities to make money on our own. So my mom says, hey, I'll give you $5 to go outside, mow the lawn, clean up the clippings, throw them in the mulch pile. $5? That's easy money, right? Done, sold. She goes, hey, Joseph, I'll give you $10 to go to the bird aviary, clean out the bird aviary, get them food, water, make sure their bird houses are clean. We've got parakeets. That needs to be done. That's a tough job, though. There's a lot of parakeets. You get pooped on a lot. But $10? I mean, I can't pass that up. Are you crazy? Absolutely, I will do that. Joseph, listen. Come here. It's a hard. Out front, there's a palm tree in my garden. It's growing. I will give you $15 to go out front, dig it up, get rid of it. $15. Are you serious? Now, quick side fact that I know, palm trees, they can withstand up to 80-mile winds. That's because the roots are deep, they're strong, and they don't fall over. And this is a fact that I also know as an 8-year-old. But for $15, I'll pass. No way. That's just too much work for too little money. But I've already made $15 from the other thing. And for an 8-year-old in the 90s, that's a small fortune. Now I think I've got the money. I've got to think of the rules my parents have been teaching me. Spend your money wisely. I'm going to be honest with you. I may have given $1 at church. Savings were non-existent for me. That definitely was never in my mind, unfortunately. And necessities, though, I took that very seriously. And I'm thinking myself as an 8-year-old, I have necessities, and I'm going to spend my money wisely on those necessities. And so what I did, what any 8-year-old would do, is I bought Pokemon cards because I needed them, right? I mean, as an 8-year-old, have you seen Pikachu? He's awesome. He or she, I don't know. I watched the show. It's brand new. I want him. So, yes, I spent my money on Pokemon cards. But the money runs out occasionally. And some kids, like my neighbors, they use that catchphrase, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. They take that very seriously. My neighbors actually have made lemonade and sold it on the side of the road. My brother, sister, and I, we don't have a lemon tree. We do have that palm tree my mom talked to me, but I don't know anything about pomade, and it sounds disgusting. But we need more money. So we look to the palm tree, and we do what any reasonable kid would do. We go over there and we dig up my mom's garden instead of the palm tree. And we sell the plants on the side of the road. Now, this is kind of a niche market, I know. And it's extremely niche because we live in the middle cul-de-sac. So we get about 3 visitors that day, and they're all my neighbors. But it doesn't matter. We're having fun. I'm showing off my Pokemon cards. We're playing Pogs. We're brothers and sisters, hanging out and talking. We're loving what we're doing. And that's when Rule 2 really comes to light. Enjoy what you do, and the money will come. And the black Lexus pulls up. And the tinted windows roll down. And a couple, an elderly couple, look at us. You guys selling plants? Yes, sir. This pink one's 50 cents. This orange one here is 75 cents. And the man points over to the garden. Says, that palm tree, is that for sale? He takes out a $50 bill. I'm going to give you $50 to dig up that palm tree. And I'm going to come back for it later today. $50? Are you kidding? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not even going to ask my parents. So my brothers and sisters, we go out there and we dig. And guess what? That fact about palm tree roots is true. We dug for hours, but we got that palm tree up. Finally got it up. We put it in a bag and we set it on the side of the road and we waited for them. They did not come back that night. They did not come back the next day. They didn't come back at all over 3 days until the palm tree died. And we threw away the palm tree. But we still have that $50. I've got to say, my mom, she was thrilled. She asked us to dig up that palm tree, I mean, countless times throughout the years. As it grew bigger and bigger, our fault. But she only wanted to give me $15 for digging up the palm tree, and I just earned $50. And I'm no math whiz, but let's see here. $50 divided by 4, minus the fact that I'm third child, I made $10. That's great money, right? This time I'm going to do a wiser choice with my money. I'm not going to make foolish decisions this time. So this time I bought more Pokemon cards. Yeah, I totally did. I'm 8, right? I just want them so badly. Now I'm an adult, though. And I'm going to be quite honest, I have a lot of the things my parents have. I have a beautiful family, 2 kids that I love, my beautiful wife. We have a beautiful garden out in the back. We have, oh my goodness, I have a palm tree out front, for goodness sakes. And I think about the rules that my parents taught me as I grew up. My wife and I, we take rules pretty seriously. I mean, in our own ways. She doesn't know the rules that my parents taught me, but we spend our money wisely. We donate, we put in savings. And And rule number 2, we do it with joy. I'm a carpenter full time, but I still have those Pokemon cards that I enjoyed just so much when I was a kid. And rule 1 and 2 really paid off because I spent my money wisely on Pokemon cards and I enjoyed them so much. And now I sell them on the side. And I'm going to be honest, it was probably one of my better investments. Pikachu, worth way more nowadays, which is great. But I keep thinking about rule number 3. I didn't like that. Like I said, somehow though, my wife, she's asked me to trim up the tree in our backyard, and somehow that rule has really settled in with me. And so when she asked me to trim up the tree in the backyard, I worked extremely hard to try to get someone else to trim it up because there's just some things that I don't want to do. I am not my parents, though sometimes I wish I were. But I'm still working on getting someone to trim that up. So if you know anyone. But you know what? That rule has really affected me. And I look to the palm tree in my front yard and I see my kids and I think how I wish that one day I can show them those rules. And you know what? I know that my parents growing up actually paid people to do jobs, even though we never saw it. For instance, that day that we were digging up the palm tree that my mom had asked so many times for us to dig up, my parents hired someone that day to come over and pay us kids to dig up the palm tree that they had asked us to dig up. Thinking, we got hustled. Like, what? But they weren't paying for us to dig up a palm tree. Though an added bonus, my parents were paying for us to learn the love of the hustle, the art of hustle. And nowadays, my brothers, sister, and I, we all have our own side hustle. I write children's books. I sell Pokemon cards. I make comic books. I do a lot of things that I love and I enjoy. And I look to that palm tree out in my front yard and my children, and I think maybe one day they'll realize that I have a lemon tree in my backyard and that they should never dig up that palm tree. And that's how I learned the art of hustle. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Oh my gosh, we so appreciate your story and your jokes and your example. I'd love to close the show with a child of hustlers, bringing it full circle since we've had so many people talking about themselves being hustlers. I love it. Thank you so much for wrapping our show. With that, we want to bring up all of our storytellers. SKYLER, and thank you, Gabriella. Oh my God, Kitty, you're all here. Give us a wave and say thank you so much for telling your stories tonight and connecting with our audience from all of your homes and businesses. We so appreciate you. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching this show and celebrating entrepreneurship and hustle with us. Oops, sorry, my hair is a little bit out of control there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.